Welcome to Men's Anonymous, the podcast where men can be vulnerable and open without fear of judgment. Your host, Daniel Weinberg, leads authentic and unfiltered discussions that explore the challenges and triumphs of modern manhood. Join us as we break down barriers, challenge stereotypes, and redefine masculinity. Men's Anonymous, a safe space for men to lower their shields and share their inner world without judgment.
Hey, today on the show, we've got Trent Knox from the 440 Club. Very excited for the conversation. We're going to hear about what it's like to be waking up at 3:30 in the morning on a daily basis and how that can get you back to a place where you really need to be. He's going to talk community. He's going to talk about himself, his battle against alcohol, substance abuse, and maybe talk to us a little bit about the tools that we can all use to overcome life's challenges and what our true potential really is. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Really looking forward to Trent Knox. Trent Knox, so good to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thanks, Daniel. Good to see you, mate.
So you're in Bronte at the moment? Where are you?
In Bondi.
Bondi,
Australia. It's 5 p.m. It's probably not relevant right now, but it's a beautiful sunny day. The weather's just cleared down here. We've had about a week of rain and the sun's back out, surf's up, and we're almost at the end of the day on a Tuesday.
Your sleep time is?
I've been a bit slack lately. The goal is to be in bed by 8 o'clock tonight. So I'll be in bed in the next 3 hours.
So the routine is 8 o'clock at night, you go to bed?
And 8 p.m. and then the first alarm's 3:30, out of bed by 3:50.
Yeah. And you're solo. There's not many people on the planet doing that routine.
The amount of people I bump into when I get down to the beach to about 4 o'clock is a handful of us. On a busy morning, two hands.
So let's start from the beginning. How did you get to waking up at 3:30 in the morning every day and changing your life around? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, grew up in South Coogee. Originally born down in Cronulla area, Shire, and Sylvania. Mum was born in Paddington. Dad was born in Glebe. They bought their first house there, but we quickly moved. I think I was about one. We moved to Coogee. Grew up there. Went to local schools here for a bit. Then Trinity Grammar private boys' school. Grew up in North Bondi Surf Club. Originally started Coogee Surf Club, but spent most of my years at North Bondi competing in surf life saving, swimming, board paddling, Ironman events. Played footy, rugby union at school, but Sundays played league for a couple of years. So dabbled in most sports growing up. It's
so very active, athletic, sporty, fit. Yeah, young buck basically.
Yeah, my old man was a rugby league player. He played couple of seasons for South and Newtown Jets back when they were around. So I guess sport was in the family, and Dad thought it was a good vehicle to keep us out of trouble. That was a driver. He got a lot of trouble growing up, so that was part of his motivation: get us into sport, get us off the streets.
And career wise, then post schooling, you jumped into what?
Yeah, so. Bit of hospitality when I got out of school. Then I dived into real estate. Spent some time in the city, and then went into project marketing, selling around inner city areas. And then I ended up landing with McGrath Real Estate. Worked with John for a number of years, and came home. So I was selling around where I grew up, South Coogee, Maroubra, coastal areas. That I did that I spent probably 15, 16 years at the company. And
that's a series.
Great. Yeah, it was. It was something that I was passionate about for a very long time. I enjoyed it. I wanted to work in a an industry where I wasn't tied down to an office. So we, got to be out and about looking at beautiful properties. I got to work with people, families. I was always interested in construction and architecture and design. It served a purpose for a long time. I met a lot of that are still lifelong friends. I learned a lot about people, the psychology of people, buying and selling and negotiations and how we behave. And, I learned a lot of valuable life lessons. But in the end, real estate wasn't for me. It chewed me up and spat me out. I think the competitiveness and the nature of, a selling industry. Yeah, I guess looking back on it now, it sounds silly, but I had an obsession with sneakers for a long time, running shoes and Nikes and stuff. And I used to collect them. And I remember being in real estate, always thinking about, I think I just want to end up in a career where I'm just wearing sneakers all the time. And I used to say it as a joke. I mean, funny enough, now real estate agents, they're all wearing sneakers and changed the whole look. But I think looking back on it, there was a sign there saying that, hey, you're not going to be in this industry forever. And here I am, I'm involved with a community run club, which has quite a substantial presence now. And but we're a trainer.
Before we get there,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna just
Come back.
You said it chewed you up and spat you out. So when you say that,
Yes.
elaborate. What was the?
Yeah, look, I wasn't prepared for, and it's not just a real estate industry. When you're in a selling industry and there's deals and, you're negotiating and you're pounding the pavement and you're selling yourself and you're selling a product and, there's a lot of rejection that's attached to that. It's a roller coaster. And knowing what I know now, you have to be balanced. You have to live a balanced life. And a lot of it is so competitive that all you think about is winning and think about is winning the next listing and beating your competitor and being number one in your office and, proving yourself. You're constantly proving yourself and it's all on a scoreboard. So you're constantly being measured, and with that, and
it's very public. Like,
very public.
Let's say you're putting your name on the listings and you're, like people
getting attention and sometimes people like you, then they don't like you. And sometimes you never find out why they like you or they don't like you. And we take it personally. And, there's knowing what I know now, you have to be prepared in any industry like that on how to deal with rejection, how to look after yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually. What you do external from work is important. Like how do you wake up every day? How do you end your day? The people you spend time with, who are your mentors? How do you disconnect? And, I just didn't have that structure. It was
how did you deal with rejection, challenges, stress? What did you do?
I'd go and punch the shit out of a boxing bag. I'd go and run 10K as fast as I could. I'd go and lift heavy weights. I'd go surf big waves, or I'd go out and have a truckload of booze, stay out all night, and that could be having a shit week or having a good week. You go to celebrate or commiserate because you're just trying to numb yourself. And it's a fast way of doing it rather than going, what are three other things that are better than doing that? Well, one could be, going and having a sauna and a plunge with a mate. Secondly, could be going for a walk with your mate or a surf. It could be just going home and having a nice warm shower and a meal and going to bed. But, within that, you've got to sit with yourself. And I didn't have the ability to sit with myself and slow down and go, right, everything's going to be okay. You've had a shitty day. Tomorrow's a new day. I didn't have that dialogue. And, I didn't have someone sort of saying, hey, grab you by the arm. It's like, mate, you're actually doing okay. Don't worry, because we'll talk about it today, but that's a male thing, not sharing and opening up and sharing with your peers going, what, I'm struggling. I'm really struggling with this industry and the rejection and some one moment you're winning, then you're not winning. You can have the best week and then have the worst week. And there's
a lot of bravado there, right? You got to look like control and you're strong and you're like, you know what's up.
And I wanted to be successful to my family and my peers, my brother, all that sort of stuff. So you go and do all of that, and you don't realize that you're just absorbing stress, and you're getting so full of stress and so tense, and you don't have an outlet. That's your outlet's excessive stuff. So over time, and I've proven it. I've seen other people prove it. It's not sustainable, and eventually you break down.
How long would you say the period of you using, let's say, other vices to take you, very common, like have a drink after work, do some drugs on the weekend. It's all recreational and all good fun with your buddies, and like you said, celebrate, commiserate. How long would you say that period went on for you if you reflect on it?
Yeah, look, I'd call the period where I would deem it was manageable and under control, because I was still turning up for work. I think a period of like, I'd say, that lasted for 6 to 8 years, where I was making good money, and, but my relationships with girls were rubbish. I wasn't.
So explain. How would you describe?
Well, I wasn't being transparent in the relationship to how I was feeling. I was just tucking it all under a carpet, it's something that, I've only learned the last few years how to open up and just share. And so you're not there present in the relationship. You think you are, and then you do all this good stuff, and then all of a sudden you just go on a big night without any sort of reason, and then you got a partner looking for you, and you hit the self-destruct button, and you're not being honest and say, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I'm struggling with everything. And what I didn't know what was happening, I had a lot of childhood trauma was just sitting beneath the surface. So I think when I started becoming successful in what I was doing, and I became good at what I was doing because I enjoyed it, I spent time with good people, I didn't realize it was sort of taking a piece of my soul at the same time. And so there was an underlying unhappiness, and I always felt that I had a low self-worth. And, I think I was always questioning, do I deserve this? Am I a good person? And, I think the big thing was I was a people pleaser. I was always worried about what other people thought. And I was trying to make, I was looking for validation, which what I know now, it doesn't matter as long as I can validate myself, and I love myself, and I'm happy with myself, and I'm proud of myself, But, I'm 45. The first 40 years of my life, I was seeking approval from everyone else.
And you saying that came from the childhood trauma?
I think it would attribute to it. I think that growing up, I just didn't know where I fit or who I was. And I think that when you don't know that, and you're not steered in that direction, like, I guess you're mentored in that way, you spend most of your time just running around in circles and trying to figure it out.
Disconnected from yourself, basically.
Yeah. And you're like it's like a pinball machine just bouncing off a wall, and try this week and that week, and I'll try that. And you're constantly, thinking that people actually care. And what I realized, people have got their own shit going on, and they don't care as much as you think. If I had the ability just to get on with it and just do what was working for me and get honest with myself and seek the right help, it might have been a different story. But, I found it later in life, and, the most important relationship I have today is with me. And back then, hence why the burnout and the self-destruction was because I didn't value myself enough, and I didn't have that relationship with myself to go, I'm not traveling well. I need to do something about it. I was under the impression that it'll fix itself at some point. It will, we'll get there, but it doesn't. It doesn't, unless you're prepared to do the work. And
do you think you were consciously pressing the self-destruct button when you got into that mode? If you reflect, were you going, but let's just fucking go for it here. Fuck it.
No, look, I think in the early years I was, working well. My brand was building, good people around me. Always, I've been lucky with that. You don't have a night out. You get home at 1 or 2 o'clock. You get up the next day. You get on with it. and you turn up for work on Monday, you do it all, and then there was nothing aggressive or abusive about that. I think when I started making more money, I think internally, if I think about it now, there was stress starting to come to the surface, and I just didn't have any tools to cope with it. Relationships weren't working. I think the more money I was making, the more destruction.
More
and I think, I had access to more things, and then I think that because I wasn't dealing with, things, and also as you're getting older and relationships are accumulating and life's accumulating, if you're not dealing with it all and ending a relationship and ending it on good terms and working on that, and you just got, I guess, mess accumulating, and it's just noisy and, and it's uncomfortable, and you just got all these loose ends, and then all of a sudden, that the nights get bigger and the relationships get worse, and you're not holding on to a relationship, you're blaming them. You've got no ability to look at yourself and go, hey, you're the problem, not everyone else, and I need to do something about it. I had a lot of people trying to help me.
Oh, you did? So I want to ask about that. So you start saying, hey, Trent, I think you need to pull up and, take it a little bit easier.
Yeah, there were people trying to help me that didn't understand it. So I guess the way they approached it would trigger me.
Okay.
Looking back now, they were doing their best. But then I had other people that understood me, and they were very patient with me, which I learned now that's all you can do is have patience and empathy for people going through it. But I just wasn't getting it. The penny wasn't dropping. And I think a lot of it now, again, looking back on it, I was terrified to look at myself and terrified to try and find out what was really going on, what was the deeper issue. But I didn't want to face it. Yeah, and I didn't know how bad things were. I didn't know the trauma that I felt was there. I didn't know what it was going to feel like when I started dealing with it. And I was terrified to go and ask for help. And again, I would go to bed and hoping I'd wake up and it was just all resolved on its own. So things just, and with all of that, things just get worse. It gets worse if you're not dealing with it and getting help. Then it's just like a cancer. It just grows and it grows and it grows, and then, for some people, they don't make it out. It gets so dark for them they never see the light again. I think I was very lucky, and I say that there was a higher power out there far greater than me that wanted to keep me around for a bit longer. And and because I've always questioned it, it's like I don't know. The destruction got worse, and it just got to a point for me where it's like either you do something or you're not going to last much longer. You'll
give us that final episode where it was when whatever happened and you went, I'm done. I've got it.
2020. It was in 2020. It was in June, and lockdown.
This is
COVID. And we'll talk a lot about it. The run club had been existing, and over the last sort of, leading into it, 3-4 years into this last episode, there were distances between the benders that I was having. So I was never a daily drinker. It was, and that was my drinking history. And so I would abstain for alcohol and drugs for, periods of time and just throw myself into training and projects and whatever. I had the run club going. I was training people. Again, I wasn't sharing anything with anyone. Therefore, no one knew how to help me. And then, so what was happening is the benders were just became more just sitting at home on my own and drinking and taking drugs on my own. You by myself. So there was no fun in it at all. There was no pleasure. There was no, you're at a dance party or a concert, and it was just at home on my own, and then, switching.
This is not an enjoyable experience then, really.
Well, it was, I was just trying to numb myself. I was trying to escape how I was feeling, the discomfort I was sitting in at that time, and over those years leading into it, it was my way of escape. And, the problem was when I picked up a drink, I'd always say to myself, just have a couple of drinks And then every time I would then, pick up a drug, cocaine. And then if I picked up the drug, I'd say, well, you can only have a certain amount. You go to bed by midnight. And every time I would go over the midnight period, every time, it just like clockwork, it would happen. And I had no control over it, absolutely no control. And then, so my final episode was sitting on my own on a Saturday night at home. Everyone was out. Everyone was doing their own thing. No one knew what I was doing, which was fine. I was left to my own devices. And then, sitting at home Saturday night, then, I was up all day Sunday in my room, still drinking, still taking drugs. They finished 2 a.m. on the Monday morning. I had to get up at 4 o'clock. I had to do a live. I had to do my coffee club. I sort of held it together. I don't know how. I went, slept all day that day, Monday. I knew during the course of that day and how I felt that morning, I just knew that I was in such a dark place that I knew I was done. I knew that I couldn't do this anymore. I knew that I didn't have another one of those left in me. And I had people looking for me over the course of the weekend and stuff. And, just leaving breadcrumbs to people, not giving away too much. People knew what I was doing. The patterns were there. And
Were you ashamed to expose yourself to those people around?
beyond ashamed, embarrassed, full of anxiety. I didn't know where to start, what to say, how to do it. And then, a mate of mine was looking for me, and Monday got hold of me Monday night and said, look, we've got to talk tomorrow. I said, yeah, I know. So I was going to that conversation, that coffee, defeated. I didn't know what the answer was. I didn't know what I was going to do. All I knew was I couldn't do what I did on that weekend again. And, it was because it would have killed me, if I did it again. And, we sat in a cafe in Bondi, and he got honest with me. He said, I'm really worried about you. You go from being happiest bloke in the world, you're down running with people, you're encouraging, motivating, you're doing all this great stuff, and it's awesome.
I mean, that's the irony of it as well.
It's just
Look, you started your run club, which we'll talk about. You were like being a role model for other people on how to live a healthy, balanced, fit, embrace life. And meanwhile, you're smashing yourself on your own in a dark place, unbeknownst to the world.
complete fraud. And, it was nuts. And we sat in this cafe, and he told me how he was feeling about it all. And then look, he turned around and just said, mate, look, what can I do? Like, what do you want me to do? How do I help? And I just sort of looked at him, and then it was like, I just had this moment where, it's like a lightning bolt moment. And I just looked at him and I said, mate, look, there's nothing you can do. Like, just, and I laughed. He's like, why are you laughing? I said, mate, there's actually nothing you can do. I said, this is entirely up to me. This is on me. I've got to take the first step. And he's like, yeah. And I said, like, you can be my friend and you can be supportive. I said, but this is on me now. And then I just said, I stood up at the table. I said, mate, I've got to go. He's like, where are you going? And it was 11:45. It was a Tuesday. And I said, there's an AA meeting at midday up the road. I'm going to go and walk in the door. And I took myself up to Bondi Road, up at Waverley Oval. I walked in there. I saw a heap of familiar faces that I probably saw 8 years ago when I was in the rooms. Wow. They were still in there. They were sober. I sat my ass down, and
How was that listening, walking into your first AA meeting?
I saw people I knew, so I was embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, now I've got to explain myself. And I just sat there and I just said to myself, just sit there, shut your mouth. And I started hearing all these stories, and they were familiar from ones I'd heard from the same people. And for the first time, I could hear their stories, and I'm like, I get it. And the similarities in their stories to the way I was living my life. And in that moment, I realized that I wasn't pioneering my madness, meaning that I thought for years, I'm going through this. There's no way on earth anyone's going through what I'm going through, so I'm not going to talk about it. And then I went, shit, I'm not pioneering my madness. Other people have been there. And if other people have been there, then maybe they can guide me through my madness. And so I spent the next 90 days doing a meeting a day. I went back to my psychologist. And then I reckon about 4 days later, my business partner at the time, Todd, he said, look, And there's a bit of tough love there, and I was just listening. I was just prepared to do whatever people told me to do. He said, I'm worried about you doing the morning live chats. I think it's a lot of responsibility and it's a lot of pressure, given that you want to give this a real crack. And he said, I don't think you should do it. And my response was, and for the first time I said, no, I don't disagree with you. I said, but give me a few days to think about it. And he said, okay, I'll give you 3 days. On the third day, I was sitting back in the same cafe, and I was just, obviously pretty down and just thinking, how am I going to get through this? How's it going to work? What does it look like? The head was buzzing.
Oh,
And
that the ECPD committee, be your mind
mental, completely mental. And
get crazy with that stuff.
yeah. And I said and I was looking at the table and I thought, you know what, if I always believe with what I've created with the 440, that it's got the ability to do something amazing beyond and whatever that looks like. And I thought, if I give this all away and I do everything within my power, never touch a drink and a drug again, and get to the bottom of whatever is going on with me and deal with all the trauma, get all the help, just throw everything into this, I believe it could be something amazing. And then that was sort of like option A. And option B was, I said, look, if you go and do all the suggested things, get clean, sort your shit out, blah, blah, blah. And if it gets to a point you feel comfortable and you feel like picking up a drink again, and you can do that. And then all I could see was the 440 just burning down in flames.
Okay, so let's talk, because you're talking a lot about the 440. What has no idea about what the 440 is yet. So it's a big part of your life. It's had a lot of impact on a lot of people. Why don't you intro the 440 Club, because it's super important, and then talk how that helped you, I guess, bring you to where you are today.
So the 440, it's a run club. We're turning 9 this year in June.
Amazing.
It's down at Bronte Beach, and for people that are familiar with Bronte, there's the old, it's now the car park, which is the old tram line. The old Bronte tram used to drive up there back in the day. And so I guess 9 years ago now, me and a bunch of mates, we're doing a lot of running for, city surfs and half marathons and you name it. And we took a track session, which was 10 400s, and we put it on, and we went and measured the hill, and the hill was 440 meters to the top. And so why don't we go down there and sprint to the top, walk back? And we used to go down at 5 a.m. on a Saturday before work and before what we had to do. And there'd be anywhere between 2 to 6 of us. We did it for about 3 to 6 months. We all got super fit, super fast. We were running the fastest time we could. Going back then, my mental health wasn't great. I was in and out of, I probably had a bit more control over my drink that was probably starting to progress, but it started to get worse. And so
that's the crazy part. Like, you're like, on one hand, you're getting up in the morning and you're super fit. Yeah. And at the same time, you're smashing your body.
Yeah, mental. And because I thought I could do it. And I thought that was normal. I've seen other people do it, and I just sort of thought, well, maybe that's the yin and the yang. And that was my understanding. And so the boys dropped off doing the Saturdays. And there's something within me going, man, I think you should keep doing this. I think you should keep turning up on Saturday. It's accountability. It'll keep you out of trouble on a Friday. So I did. And I kept doing the session, and I did it. I remember I got a few more weeks under my belt. I was getting fast and strong. And then all of a sudden I did it one Saturday, and I'm like, this is hard doing it on my own. It's actually really hard because it's running hills. We're going flat out. We were running fast. And I said, this is actually not any good. This is no good on your own. So I decided, instead of sprinting, I would just loop it. So you run up the hill and you come back down the road, and you can loop the thing. So I took the intensity out, and I started doing 10 laps and just at my own pace. And I thought, and a couple of weeks later, I thought, this sucks doing it on my own. Why don't I do it with other people? I like helping other people. I want to be inclusive. It's in my DNA and the way I was sort of brought up. And I was transitioning out of real estate. You start to train people, and I was helping some mates with the gym. And I thought, why don't I just invite people through Instagram? I thought, well, what am I going to call it? I said, well, it's 440 meters. I'll call it the 440. Set up an account and started putting, inviting people. And on the 16th of June back in 2016, I put out an invitation. I said, come and do hill sprints at 5 a.m. on Saturday, and I will look back now. I'm like, how does that look attractive? 5 a.m. Saturday morning and running hills.
Fishman, right?
So no one came. It was just me on the first official day, and I put up a photo of just the blank hill, the vacant hill, and so then essentially I started then just inviting people each week, and then for the first sort of year or two, we'd get 2 people, 10 people. A busy morning would be 15, a 6 and 8, and we'd essentially just turn up. Everyone just sort of grunted at each other. It's 5 a.m. It's 10 to 5 on Saturday. And because it's a 700-meter loop, the time you take off, you don't see anyone pretty much. You might lap a couple of people, but you don't see anyone for sort of half an hour, 35 minutes. And then we in that time, in that 2 years, there were a couple of Saturdays where I didn't turn up. I was either hungover or still out. And people didn't say anything. They just sort of, I guess gave me space and just, never called me out. And then in 2018, my mate Todd came down. I met Todd through a bunch of other older mates, and he came down and he fell in love with it and started coming more and more. And he'd had a sporting background and a fitness background, and he was keeping me accountable as someone that was sort of, had fallen in love with as much as me. And then in that 2018, 2019 period, it went from like 10 people each week to 20 people to 30 people. And then we started getting more women coming down because the women we found were more open to trying new things and didn't care about being the fittest, the fastest, and being at the back or the front. And then when there were more women coming, more men started turning up because the girls are there. And then we started really getting, I think whether it started to layer itself, we started getting a mixed bag of people. Fast, slow, skinny, not skinny, different religions, backgrounds, you name it, and different abilities. And we just encourage people to just come and move. If you want to run for 10 laps, great. If you want to walk for 2, that's whatever. But it's 5 a.m. sharp every Saturday morning, rain, hail or shine. And that's where our brand sort of really kicked in. And that's what we were known for, is like, we're there, rain, hail or shine. Our mottos were get up, lace up, turn up. And another thing we used to say was we start in the dark, and it would be all over our social media. We started getting photos of like old celebrities and washed up actors and athletes, and they became the poster boys and girls for our things. And we just, I guess what we're trying to do is we're trying to have fun with this thing called fitness, which is stressful for a lot of people. People turning up in the same time. Hey,
building community at the same time.
Community, and I was always, going back to my father, one thing he was very good at when we were young, as hard as a man as he is still, he never left any kids behind, whenever we were training or sports, and, someone needed a lift. And I used to, as I grew up, I used to think when I was getting into the sport, in the fitness space, it's like, what happens to all these people that are terrified to walk into a gym, or they're overweight, or they don't feel like they've got 2 left feet, or they're, the wrong color and they sound the wrong way. And like, where do they start? How do they get going? And I just sort of thought, we're starting in the dark. We're doing these stupid hills that no one wants to do. The more people we get from different backgrounds, and we all come together, it's going to help everyone. And I became really passionate about turning every person that said they couldn't run or they had no athletic ability for them to prove to themselves that was bullshit. And, it's like, I can't run. Cool. Come and walk. Oh, I got to work Saturday morning. You're not working at 5 a.m. And we heard 3,000 excuses. And I used to say, that's cool. We'll get you eventually, and then we had this whole thing about, starting in the dark and running to the light, because the sun would, more often than not come up. And it was showing people that you can't, it's not dark forever. And we all experience darkness, whether it's in birth and relationships and financials and, heartache and illness and all that sort of stuff. We all go through darkness, but some people don't come out of it. We spoke about that. A lot of people do, and there's light at the end of it. And coming and running before the sun came up on a Saturday morning, when the streets are empty because everyone's either hungover in bed or still out, It's starting your weekend off on the right foot, which means you end your week, your working week. And so for the first 4 years, I was sort of I didn't know what I had and I didn't know where it was going. I knew it was helping me. It was helping people. But then, there's this dickhead running the run club who's not being honest and sharing what's going on with him. And, it became, in a very short period of time, especially around 2018, 2019, a big part of my life because it was helping people. And the more people it was helping, it was making me feel good. And the thing I loved about it the most, and I still love about it, is how simple it is. It's Saturday morning, it's 5 a.m., it's running up a hill. You can walk. You don't even have to run. If you just want to come and sit on the fence and take photos, you can. But it's the whole going through the whole exercise of getting someone out of bed in the dark on a Saturday when everything's telling them to stay in bed, and how they can come and walk with a bunch of strangers and they can download, or they can run, they can jump in the ocean, they can have a coffee, and by 7 a.m. they completely rewire themselves after the shitty week they've had. And then we go back to where I was in 2020. And I've had my last bender and I'm sitting at this cafe and I'm looking at, do I go all in and do all the work and all the suggested things? Because I knew I didn't have another bender in me. So that was sort of the only option I had. But I just saw this flame on the table of the 440 burning down and, torching it if I ever picked up a drink again. So I walked out of the cafe and I rang Todd and I said, look, I want to see where this thing's going to go. This coffee club chat, which we started 3 months before, and I've committed to, and we're still in lockdown. I want to continue it. I think that if I can drag myself out of bed to go live at 4:30 every day, I think it's going to help me stay sober because I never want to.
I saw you do one of these. So you get up earlier than everyone else.
Yep.
And you do a live on Instagram
every day, 4:30. I go live at 4:30 every day, wherever.
Just talk wax lyrical. You just talk about what random. It's just talking to the people. People turn up. I can see they're live.
Walk past, come and say hi.
Hey Tracy. Hey Mikey. Yes. Here, good on you, mate. You just do that, and it's like just engaging people and it's that discipline.
So I rang Todd and I said, look, I think this is going to be good for me first and foremost. Gives me accountability that I have to be up. So whatever's going on right now in the day, that I know whatever goes on, that alarm's going off at 3:30. So I need to do whatever it takes in that day to stay sober. And if I can do that, I think it's going to help. And I'm going to go to my meetings and I'm going to go see my psychologist, and I'm going to train sensibly and not overdo it. And I'm going to get as much rest as I can. And I'm going to do all the suggested things. And he said, okay, cool. And I think having that conversation, having his blessing with it helped. And so then I think we got to like 100 days of it. And I thought, you know what? Why don't we just aim to get to 440 days? That's our brand. That's who we are. And let's see if we can do it 440 days. And I started sharing it. And then I think when I was about 6 months sober, I started then on the coffee club sharing what was going on. And I'd break down in tears some days and I'd thank people. And the interesting part of doing that live chat every day, definitely within the first 12 months, I actually started to get an indication of who I was because
you're just being deeply honest, authentic.
I had no script, no dialogue. I had no prep. It was more a bit of a hi, how, I'd have my little welcome every morning, but I didn't care who I was. I didn't care about what I said. I didn't worry about pleasing people. All I cared about. And before I started actually going live, I used to pre-record them. And I had all these bloopers of like cameras falling over the wind. And because of the Apple iPhones have improved, but all the microphones were rubbish. We'd have howling winds, things that fall over. I had makeshift tripods. They were resting on bins and shoes. And, I just kept turning up every day. And when I stopped worrying about what I was going to say, that's when it all started to like really sink in going, this is you. Whatever's said this morning, that's you. That they're getting you every day. They're not getting a teleprompter. They're not getting a scripts and dialogues. It's you. And and that's how I've always been able to describe it. That's me standing here in the morning where I can just get up out of bed, say what comes to my tongue. I'm not worried about what people think. I obviously try not to offend anyone. But what started coming out of me was I started sharing my experience of sobriety. I started sharing my experience of starting my day in the dark every day. Then I started having conversations with people about their experience with the 440 and that about their wellness journey, and people started gravitating towards me. I started getting all this intel, and
Well,
I
you're
didn't
you're
have to go.
making yourself vulnerable to others, and in turn, giving them permission to be vulnerable with you. I guess it's like you're opening up, allow them to open up to you.
Yeah. And so then, I guess from there, so I always, between March 30 and June 20 in 2020, so that call it 3-month period, I think I missed 2 or 3 because I was still playing up. But even I call it from my sobriety day from the 22nd of June, we've done a coffee club every day. 22nd of June, 2020, and still to today, I had to do 3 or 4 pre-recordings last year when I went to India and I was in an ashram and my phone was off. So I had to pre-record them and I got one of the girls to have them and she would upload one every day. And it's pretty funny because as I'm recording, I'm trying to remember the day of the week and, I kept stuffing it up. So everyone knew it was pre-recorded, but the hidden message in all that is just trying to make someone laugh and seeing the lighter side of life and taking the piss. And that's where these chats led to, is about, I'm up. So if I can get up, you can do it.
Yeah.
And if you keep it simple and stay in the day, if I can do that, you can do it. And, don't take yourself too serious. And then I just started sharing whatever was going on any particular day. Some days I had nothing to say. I'd get on and get off. We went through a period of having a lot of guests on. We're going to come back to that this year. We'll get you as a live stream as a guest one morning, mate. We'll have a chat.
Yeah.
But the whole underlying thing, which is on brand with our community and why we still exist, is it's about helping people face their darkness by helping them start their day in it. And that's
Give me your full for the audience. I want to hear your full toolkit. Like, what would you say are the key things in your, like, you have what seems to be a very programmatic routine now in your life. You've created a program which is obviously not just like helping you get by, but I can see it's beyond that. It's energizing you. You're like, every time I've spoken to you, you're pumped, you're jacked, you're like excited, like you're feeling good, like, and that is infectious. And I can see how people around you are wanting to join the club. And I want to be like Trent. I want what Trent's on. What's Trent on?
Look, I think in between all of that, and especially I'm coming up with I'm over 4.5 years sober, and it's been a roller coaster. It hasn't been sunshines and rainbows, but what I've learned is that when we accumulate stress, which we do, and we do it when we don't even realize, and you can have it from early ages, and if we don't have tools to deal with that stress, then that's when we start acting out. And that could be binging on food, it could be sex, it could be drugs, alcohol, it could be spending, whatever, it could be violent. Is that, how I start my day and how I finish my day is super important. They're paramount, and I'm not perfect at it. And so for me in sobriety, getting up before the sun is super important. Okay. So that's the first thing I recommend to people. And before I say at the start that, I always recommend things to people that are sustainable, that are accessible. Not everyone's got a big, got plenty of dough to go and buy, the greatest diets and the best gym memberships and the greatest psychology.
And going for a run and and being healthy, it doesn't cost a lot of money.
It doesn't, and it's looking at the things that I call them the tools that are laid at your feet that we overlook. And so it's like, for me, get up before the sunrise. Okay. Now I get up a bit early because I've stupidly decided to start doing a coffee club chat, and I stupidly started a run club that starts at 5 a.m. However, it got me sober. It saved my life. Getting in the ocean every day, I need to do it. Like connecting to getting that salt water on the body, getting energized. I've sent you images of what it's like, and they're laying in the water some mornings when the moon's over the water. Like you can't buy that experience, but you can go and experience it for free. It's there, but you've got to get out of bed. I like interacting with people first thing in the morning. There's a whole bunch of characters down there, all shapes and sizes, all ages, and we all get to know each other. And I can walk down the foulest mood, and then someone whistles at me and says hello, and I'm out. Like it's like they caught me out.
They're getting energy from other people.
Yeah, and also, which has stared me in the face my whole life, being part of North Bondi Surf Club, a lot of the older guys who have been the old guys since I was a little fella, and they're still old, even though I'm older. I look back now on their patterns in their behaviour since I was a kid. And they've all got successful businesses, and most of them are still married. They're successful because they're happy, and they're successful because they're doing the same stuff now that I used to see them do 20 and 30 years ago. They get up in the dark. They get down to the beach. They get down to the surf club. They yell and scream at each other and rant and rave in the gym. They jump in the sauna. They go and have a swim together. They get a coffee. Now, they're doing that between the hours of 5 and 7 or 4:30 and 6:30. They've been doing it my whole life. They're still doing it. And I'm like, well, it's working for them, and it's worked for them. And all I've done is take what they're doing, and I'm doing the same thing. And, it's simple stuff that we overlook. And, the other thing, the reason I keep it up is because 12 months ago, I had some family stuff go on. It was pretty rough couple of days. One of the days kept me up to about midnight on a Sunday night, and I was just like exhausted. I was, stressed, and there was just, there was all emotions flying around, and my head was all over the place. And I just remember getting my head on that pillow. I was going to cancel my classes, and I went, I've got to do this bloody coffee club. And I remember the alarm went off at 3:30, and it's like I'd actually been drinking all weekend. I felt so exhausted and just stuffed, and I just went, mate, just get out of bed. It's like I grabbed myself by the hair and dragged myself out. I walked down the beach, and I just went and laid in the water for 5 minutes, and I just let all the ocean just wash over me, and it temporarily got rid of that stress that I needed to. And I went up and just showered off. I got dressed. I got on the coffee club. I did the coffee club. I did my morning. I was able to then take the rest of the day off. I went to bed. And that was just a clear indication of how quickly you can change your mood and change your direction if you are willing to. And if you have a set of tools that you have trialed and tested. So all I've been doing in the last 4 or 5 years, I've been trialing tools, things that work for me, things that don't work for me. And the drugs and alcohol weren't working for me, and I had to do something about it. But I needed help to deal with that. And then all I've done since that, I started sharing my story with our community. I started turning up every Saturday. I started seeing the psychologist. I kept going to my meetings. And then, I would then evolve things. Like I added the swim before the coffee club chat. But the coffee club chat worked at the beginning, and I'm still doing it. It still works. But, the difference is today, I don't think about having a drink or a drug. I know where it goes. I know where it leads, and I don't need to go and dip my toe in the water. But even though I abstain from alcohol and drugs, and I know it's not good for me, and I know it doesn't work, and I know where it leads, I still have an alcoholic brain. And my alcoholic...
Explain that.
Yeah. So there's a thing they call a dry drunk. A dry drunk is someone who's dry. They don't drink, but they're drunk in the head because they're not actually getting help to get to the bottom of where all their stress and their resentments and their trauma. And so they go around, and I see them, and they're angry at the world. It's your fault. Everything's everyone else's fault. And they don't take any responsibility for their actions. They're not getting any help. They're not meditating. They're not exercising. They're not spending time with their community. They are stuck in a loop, and they're frustrated they can't drink. They're frustrated they can't go and do the things that they think they want to do. They don't have a relationship with themselves. They haven't sat with themselves. They haven't got to the bottom of why drinking became a problem and why their drinking got out of control. And so my alcoholic brain is when it kicks in when I'm not meditating and my practice falls off, which it did last year. And when my meditation is paramount. It comes before AA and my recovery, because if I meditate when I'm meant to, it just helps me make better choices. I go to all of my meetings. I see my sponsor all the time. I take more days off. I rest. I don't overtrain. I eat better food. My dialogue with people is better. I'm not short and snappy, and I don't blame everyone for everything, and I went through a bit of that last year where I wasn't meditating, and I had some family stuff going on, and probably wasn't sitting with it and dealing with it, and I wasn't seeing my psychologist enough. So everything was everyone else's problem last year. But the difference what I learned last year was I don't act out like I used to. I just store it inside and resent everyone. And I like called myself out at the end of last year. I thought, mate, you're over 4 years sober and you're pissed off with everyone. Like, what's going on? You're not meditating. You're eating shit. You're overtraining. You're not resting enough. And then your meetings can drop off, and then you're not seeing a psychologist. So you're the problem. It's not everyone else. So, I got to the end of last year and I said to myself, have you had enough? Have you had enough being angry at everyone? You had enough of being full of resentment? And I went, yeah, I think I am. And, I said to my partner, I said, I want to make some change. And she said, well, we're going to fix your food. We did a couple of running events together. And I said, it doesn't feel right. I'm putting shit in my body. And I went through a whole inflammatory cleanse. And then, I think I've been carrying a virus for a couple of months. And I believe I picked up the virus because I'm in the healthiest space when I'm meditating. I don't know what it is. I don't get sick when I'm meditating. And I had this virus I couldn't get rid of. So I went through this cleanse. I rejoined North Bondi Surf Club, which I've been putting off for years. I wanted to start racing again. I went and did that finally. I ticked that off. I've entered more runs, and I said to myself, go back and meditate. Do the things you love, like running and paddling. Stop being cranky. Stop being pissed off. Stop blaming other people. Sleep. I was even this is my first podcast I've done in a while. I put a few on hold last year because I just didn't want to talk to anyone. And that was a product of what it can be like when you're still sober, but you're not doing your work. You're not doing the work you need to do. And the work is ongoing. And it's not work. It's fine when you're doing it. The
point is, it will never, ever stop. It's all, you always got to be putting in.
Yeah, every day you got to be doing something. And I have a rule that you have to do something good for you every day. Every day. And
I swear by an example of something you do good for yourself every day.
I jump in the ocean first thing in the morning. I love it. I'm back meditating twice a day. I love my meditation. And the more I meditate, the more I want to meditate. I train with my friends. I have fun when I train. I try and have some cold therapy where I can, where even just standing under a cold shower. I'm back reading books again, do some reading every day. And this is the thing, people might hear this and go, shit, that's a lot of stuff. I can ask you, do you know how many minutes there are in a day off the cuff? Without a calculator, do you know the number?
Wait 1 second. 60 minutes, 24 hours. So, at least 1,200.
1440, 1,440 minutes. And it's funny, our number sits in the middle of that. And we did a running event a few years ago. It was a 24-hour event. We called it the 1440, which was great marketing tool. So whenever I hear someone, I don't have this, I don't have that, and time, and it's like when I say, I'm a Vedic meditator and suggested 20 minutes twice a day, it's 40 minutes. If I can't find 40 minutes, I go, mate, you're full of shit. There's 1,440 minutes in a day. There's 1,400 minutes of everything else to do what you want. You can't give yourself 40 minutes. And it's like, I want to give myself an uppercut. And I use that because if you then look at percentages, if you put 2% of the total minutes of the day back into you, 28 point something minutes, it's fuck all, pardon the French. And I have to remind myself that you can find the time if you want it. And if you said to someone, all right, I just want you to give yourself 1% of the day, it's 15 minutes. And most mental health institutions say if you go and run 15 minutes a day, it's good for your mental health, right? If you can slowly then increase 1% at a time, 4% still under an hour. And I respond better to those when I look at percentages and numbers and I look at the big picture and go, that's what we're gifted every single day. So I know that in sobriety, I've got to do my meetings. I've got to meditate because it is, for some people, they call it a disease. It is ongoing. And once you take your foot off the pedal, you may not pick up a drink straight away, but if I stop going to meetings and stop doing all the suggested things, I guarantee within 3 to 6 months, I'll pick up a drink, guaranteed. Why? Because I hear that from other people in the rooms. That's what they did. And I go to the meetings so that I hear those stories, and they tell me what's ahead. And I know people have got 5 years up, they go back out. Then they get 10 years up and they go back out. And they've been in the program for 30 or 40 years. And they've had to learn the hard way of what happens when you stop. And now I going back to what I said, I've developed a bunch of tools that work for me. And I love getting up early. It's my social. It means I get to go to bed early so I can get up early. I get to see the sun come up. I get to see that morning magic. And I wouldn't have it any other way. And I wouldn't have it if I wasn't sober. So it's one of the gifts of sobriety.
Yeah, exactly.
I probably see more sunrises than most people. And it's one of the sayings that we have, in order to, be able to capture that morning sunrise and see the magic sunrises, you have to start your day in the dark. You've got to get up early in the dark to be in position to watch the sunrise. It doesn't, you can't get up at first light coming through your window and expect to see the sunrise. It's been and gone, and it's that there is that connection to the sun and honoring the sun and welcoming the sun every day, that recharging as well. And I do a lot of that stuff and through the Vedic sort of community and a lot of it's the sun, my relationship with the sun's important. It gets my day off on the right foot. I can wake up in a foul mood and then I watch that sun come up and I shut up, you're fine. Get on with your day.
Yeah, absolutely. So I finish off the my conversations with 5 questions. So I'll ask you them. You can give as brief an answer as you'd like, but let's go for it. Who would you like to say sorry to, given the chance?
Rather than say sorry to one particular person, I'd probably want to say sorry to everyone that I lied to, deceived, let down when I was in the midst of my drinking and drugging. There are a lot of people I let down. I probably want to say sorry to them.
What are you proud of being or doing in your life?
I'm proud that I faced up to my problems and I took responsibility and I walked back into AA. I'm really proud of that. And I've continued the work and the run club has blossomed since I did that. And it's helping people within the community face their darkness and, dealing with their own addictions and traumas.
How many members you got of the club now, would you say?
So we've averaged for the last few years about 150 to 200 people every Saturday. Some people, they think we've got 25,000 followers on Instagram. They're probably all bots, but but as I've said, I think that the successful part is that rain, hail or shine, we've averaged 150 to 200 people every Saturday, 52 weeks a year.
Unbelievable. Yeah. When did you receive kindness while needing it most and expecting it least?
I had a turbulent relationship with a good mate of mine, Tom. We met many years ago and we've got a beautiful relationship. I sabotaged the relationship when I wasn't well. I used to give him a hard time and he stood by me through that until I completely pushed him away. He stood by me longer than he needed to. We didn't talk for a long time and then we reconnected a few years ago and, he won't mind me saying this, he got sober on his own time as well. And we've got this, beautiful relationship of just honesty and we talk about life and it's we wouldn't have what we have if we both weren't sober.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's cool. What did your mother or father teach you that you frequently remind yourself of? I mean, you mentioned your father teaching you 10 lessons in life before.
Look, we had a pretty chaotic childhood, and there was a lot of, amongst all the madness, you know what, one of the things that Mum used to say, which I use now, I probably could have used it years ago, was just that the idea of, counting to 10 when you're pissed off,
Yeah.
and I don't know if she ever practiced.
Self-regulation in a way, like
Yeah, just, and I use it now. Like, I mean, meditation helps me. I don't respond to things like I used to. But that's stuck. And I think, yeah, look, with Dad, I'd have to say that the thing that stuck with me with Dad, and as hard of a man that he is, and I believe that the 440 is what it is today because of him, because of the inclusion. He just never left anyone. He didn't, he was like, he used to flog us and train us all and yell and scream at everyone. Like, he was a nightmare, but he never left anyone behind. He just included everyone. If someone needed a lift, he just shoved them in the car, whether they had a seatbelt or not, it didn't matter. Just got them in. And that's something that I've carried. And it's really made me make this community as inclusive as we can make. I mean, the only thing we're exclusive of is it's 5 a.m. Saturday. That's when we run, but everything else is inclusive. So that's the gift from Dad.
That's really nice. And the last one, which is my favorite, what is your superpower?
My superpower is sobriety. Yeah.
Talk us through that.
I have the best life now. I have a better life than I could ever imagined. I don't hide from people. I don't miss appointments. I don't have to lie. I don't have to make things up. I just get to be me every day. And, I drive everyone mental, but they get me. And, being sober has allowed me to do that. Being sober has allowed me to be me. Everyone gets me. Whether I'm in a good mood or a bad mood, it's my authentic self, true authentic self. It's definitely my superpower.
Unreal. Trent, absolute pleasure talking to you. Love
Thanks, mate.
what you've done. Love the honesty, and I think it's very inspiring to us all that we can all help ourselves. At the end of the day, it's up to us, and it doesn't take a lot. It sounds to me like it's really a discipline, commitment, and just doing one little thing at a time and just layering. You just seem to be like, you get. It's just the getting up, first step, getting out there, and you just keep adding and adding and adding and optimizing and just committing to it, and then that just brings
get up on those bad days. Like our motto from the run club is get up, lace up, turn up. Just do it every day. And I think the other thing
get up, lace up, turn up.
Yeah, get up, lace up, turn up. And I had 2 intentions that I dragged into this year, and I've carried them forward. And one is leading by example, to continue what I do. So getting up and doing the coffee club, getting up and putting up the photo in the morning when I have a swim. So leading by example. But the other big thing is leaning in on the people around you. And that's probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, is ask for help and lean in. And I still struggle. I still get in trouble from people going, do you need help with this? Can we help you with this? And help you with that? What do you need? And men still struggle. So just try to put your hand up, try to ask for help. Just keep trying, even if the words don't come out properly. Keep trying until someone understands what you're saying. Don't give up on trying to express yourself.
Awesome. Trent, thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Daniel.
Have a good night's sleep.
I'll talk to you soon. Thanks, mate.
That's it for this episode of Men's Anonymous. Thank you for listening. For more information on the Men's Anonymous podcast, including resources discussed in the show, visit mensanonymous.com. Join us next time as host Daniel Weinberg provides a non-judgmental space for men to voice their innermost feelings and thoughts.